The food chain would be contaminated. Here's how that's going to happen. The mine would be fenced so that large animals can't get in. Okay, they can't get in contact with the tailings. But small animals can get in and wouldn't be prevented from getting in contact with the tailings pond and the polishing pond. And guess who eats the small animals? Exactly, the large animals. And also the ducks and the other birds would land in the polishing pond, die for food, going straight down to the arsenic and cyanide-laced sludge at the bottom. There would be habitat destruction and fragmentation of habitat for wildlife. The mine would contribute to a rapid loss of wildlands and contribute to a loss of ecosystem services in the area and habitat fragmentation, as well as disruptions of wildlife by the noise, the blasting, the dust, the vehicular traffic, and so forth. And of course, there are threats to endangered species, the mainland moose and the boreal felt lichen. After the mine closes, reclamation. This is what a reclaimed open pit looks like. Does that look like a lake in which you would want to go for a swim? Not me. We're looking at the open pit becoming an enormous hole in sterile rock. It's not going to be a living lake for years or decades. It won't be able to sustain life. It won't be colonized by life forms. The waste rock, as I said, would be a mountain containing 20 million tons of broken rock. It would be covered with stockpiled earth, and it would be replanted with vegetation, which may or may not survive. Tailings pond would be drained, and the toxic material from the polishing pond would be buried there. It would be vulnerable to groundwater seepage and future inadvertent disturbances. Moose River would remain a profoundly disturbed site, a derelict and toxic industrial waste zone. Rain and snow water seeping through the tailings will continue to leach contaminants and carry them into surface and groundwater through paths that are difficult to predict and therefore extremely difficult to monitor. Then there's the issue of acid mine drainage. Is this fun? Acid mine drainage is what happens when water and sulfide minerals in the soil combine to form sulfuric acid and seep out of the tailings, sometimes out of the waste rock as well. The mining company says the potential for acid mine drainage is very low. At last report, Environment Canada did not agree with them. I don't know where that stands now. It contaminates groundwater, entire watersheds. It's extremely difficult to prevent. Once started, it's nearly impossible to stop. And the only partial mitigation is to treat it indefinitely with lime. All right, what are the potential benefits of the mine? Well, the property owners in Moose River, which is already a contaminated site, will be getting 2 to 3 times the price for their properties. And you know what? If that's the main concern, I'd be willing for the government to take my tax dollars and buy those properties, because people can't sell them on the open market. You can't use the wells. The ground is contaminated, and the mining company is offering them a large amount of money, and those people should be able to move away and live out their final years in peace, but not this way. Royalties are something like 3% of the profits. Taxes, interestingly, mining is treated very favorably under the tax regime. The company has to earn 110% of its original investment before it pays any taxes at all. Well, do you think it's going to take quite a long time for the company to earn back 110% of its investment? I think it's going to take just about the life of the mine myself. And jobs. They promised jobs, jobs, jobs. Well, how many jobs? Well, at first it was 200, and now it was 150, and now it's down to 125. And how long? Well, maybe 5 years, maybe 7. How dangerous? Some of them will be hazardous. What training for the future will they have? Well, people will learn how to drive trucks, or they'll have their trades. They'll be able to get their papers in plumbing or electrician. There's no planning for the future because they're not interested in the future. How would the company be held accountable for its promises? No way. There's no way to hold them accountable. It's a boom and bust economy, and there is no community transition plan. Taxpayers would be forced to assume a huge risk. There are going to be costs to the province, to HRM, and to the community. Here's how that works. Most of the money raised to operate the mine is raised by selling the gold forward. This means you sell the gold while it's still dispersed in the ground. Okay? So you get the money, and then you get out the gold, and the gold is already sold. If there's an accident, what happens? The mine has to close. What happens to the mine's line of credit? Who's going to lend it money if it can't get gold out of the ground? Right? No one. It's gone. It declares bankruptcy, and it goes away. And the taxpayers of Nova Scotia are left to pick up the cost. The other scenario is, what if there's chronic contamination? What if the water, the arsenic levels in Scraggy Lake are above the regulatory standard? There will be a tremendous amount of pressure to not close the mine for that very reason, because then the taxpayers would be stuck with the bill. Heads we lose, tails we lose. There are going to be road improvements. There will be costs for worker training. There will be costs for emergency response workers. They've had no training, according to the chief of a fire department who has contacted us. The firefighters, equipment, training, medical and hospital staff, training in treating accidents with toxic materials, medical and hospital costs in the event of accident. None of this is factored in to the potential benefits of the mine. Let's learn from our mistakes. We have had the West Ray disaster, which was a failure by government to put safety on its agenda, to enforce its regulations. No one held to account. The Sydney tar ponds, the toxic waste site there, failure by government and industry to take long-term consequences seriously. And Caribou Mines, which is a very sad space, a sad place where mining from 60 years ago, the scars are still there. So what I want to leave you with is that it's important that we keep Nova Scotia blue and green and clean. Let's focus our attention on our real treasures, that clean water, fresh water, is more precious than gold. Thank you very much.